Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Noah, and in this video I am back on my couch again for another couch style discussion. And I wanted to kind of just take a few moments to share a few of my thoughts on how this whole Epstein list, Epstein friends, Epstein death, Epstein plane, Epstein island, all of the Epstein stuff actually makes quite a bit of sense to me, and how it's really not that surprising of an incident, considering what happened in the past and how things are happening right now in the present day as well. I haven't really heard about anybody kind of talk about all of these events, pardon me, in this type of way. So I'm hoping this is kind of maybe a new perspective on how we can kind of look at all of the things going on when it comes to all of this Epstein drama that we are constantly hearing about in July of 2025. I don't want to go into any of the conspiracy type of discussions that are floating around all over the place right now. These are just going to be my honest thoughts as a complete outsider. So the way that I've really kind of thought about this whole situation, right, hearing all of the conspiracy type of stuff, all of the drama within the political space, the international space, the executives, CEO space, and everything like that. To be honest, the thing that I take away most from this whole situation is that it is just not surprising in the slightest. And my rationale for thinking this way is because if you look at the circumstances that these individuals were in, right? And when I, talk about circumstances, I definitely do mean money, power, influence, that they really all had, right? That's one thing that they maybe had a few things in common, but one of the things that, all of the people that were in the circle, in the know for all of this drama was really came down to having, political power, financial power, mainly financial power, but they were, these were people of, somewhat elite socialite status. And if you also consider the time frame for when a lot of this stuff, allegedly went down, I say we, not me necessarily, but it was an age where I feel like people were maybe more inclined to do what they wanted, if that makes sense. We live in a day and age right now where, everybody is essentially, everybody has a computer that can record video and audio and take pictures and zoom in. They carry these devices on them pretty much 24/7. But when these things were occurring, back in the early 2000s, I think was when Epstein was originally, brought in front of lawyers and stuff like that. Though that type of technology was not where it is today. It just did not exist. So I think that is a very important detail to kind of think about, in that when you feel more confident in that you're not going to get caught for something, you're probably going to do it, right? Like, for example, if self-checkouts, at all of the grocery stores, Walmart, wherever, Target, if they didn't have anybody attending and they didn't have the cameras on top of the checkout machines and so on, you can probably bet that more people, even people that are not normally like that, would maybe try to take a beef stick, right? Take a candy bar, take a pack of gum, and just kind of, slip it in their pocket, just because there's not this fear of getting caught. And back then, in the early 2000s, those were kind of like, those were the golden ages if you were trying to, well, I guess the golden ages would be way far long ago, but that time period was probably pretty nice. We had phones, of course, but you really needed to be near them. Communication wasn't so widespread, right? You could get away with things in public, versus now, if you have any kind of meltdown in public, it's going to end up on Facebook. It's going to end up on Twitter. People are going to make a song about it. People are going to make a meme about it. You might be on ABC for an interview. It's just, it's crazy, right? How a lot of our public um, privacy. And, that I think those are kind of conflicting, right? Public and privacy. But generally, I feel like back in the day, in the early 2000s and a little bit before that, you still had a decent amount of privacy in public, in that things weren't remembered in the way that they are now, right? If you had a bad moment, people usually forgot about it, but now it feels like everything's recorded in some way, shape, or form. So your meltdowns or what you do in public can really stay in the archive, for eternity, basically. So when you combine these two things, right, you combine basically a lifetime of wealth, for yourself and your family and their family and their family potentially, along with this feeling of security while being out in public. I can understand, right? I'm not saying I agree with what happened, but I can understand how, certain people that are inclined to those type of sus behaviors would take part in it, right? Would act on it, because I think there's this saying, this kind of like a Superman mentality or a Superman persona. I forget exactly what it's called, but it's kind of similar to Napoleon. It's not Napoleon syndrome, but where when you have that much power, and I think it's important to classify too that despite the fact that we don't like to make everything about money, when you do have the resources that these people, and we don't know what this feels like, right, as normal people, but when you do have those type of resources, you basically do have kind of like this invincibility glitch, right? This invincibility hack, if you're into gaming in any way, shape, or form, because all of the issues, or not all of them necessarily, but a huge amount of issues that we have as everyday people can really be resolved with a little bit of extra money. And now you put into context how much liquid money these people had. Where are the problems, right? Your problems are essentially gone. I'm not going to get into, like I said, all the conspiracies about where the money came from and that kind of stuff. But like I said, when you are given those resources, or when you have those resources through your job or your family, whatever it is, it's hard not to feel invincible, right? And I think we all at certain points in our life have felt this sort of invincibility, whether it be through euphoric feelings from climbing a mountain or accomplishing something, or some people maybe just have a lot of money through their family or their work or whatever it is. You do feel a little bit invincible, right? Because if something were to happen, you buy a new one. If something were to happen, you get the best doctor. If something were to happen, you buy a new house, you leave the state, or you can do anything that you want, essentially. So I think these individuals, they almost got to the highest level, right? After you get to a certain amount of money, I feel like you kind of run out of aspirations to a certain point. And this is why we hear about, ultra wealthy people doing the most bizarre things that that we would really consider not normal. And I think the reason this happens is because, simply put, that you run out of purpose. So you start kind of exploring more of the suspicious, maybe is a good way to put it, or the dark side, of your inner being, because you have the resources you have the resources that kind of make you feel invincible, but you also know that if something were to happen, these resources might be able to kind of be a get out of jail free card for you as well. I will say that didn't work. Now that I'm saying it, that didn't work for Epstein, right? Because he didn't get out. Well, I guess I don't know technically, but you guys kind of get, you guys kind of get what I'm saying. So when you put everything into context, you put having this basically an invincibility card, right? You have this Superman syndrome, this Superman personality of feeling invincible because of all the resources that you have. And we do, define, a lot of the things that we do in our life are kind of defined by how much money we're able to bring in, because we can't do anything without money, right? It's hard to even walk outside, and take a breath without feeling like you're being billed for it at certain points in time. So you take these people in this position, right? Which the majority of us, basically all of us, will never be in that position where we're going to be, we're going to be counting dollars probably for the rest of our life. And it is what it is, but you take these people that have this opportunity and you also put them in a period where we don't have this big data. We don't have this, how should I even put it, right? We don't have the privacy, probably is the best way to put it. We don't have the privacy that we once did, right? Through one means or another. If we're talking into our phone, someone's listening, or not someone necessarily, but it's being recorded at some point. And then, like I said, when you're out in public, smartphones weren't a thing, right? Even CCTV, video cameras, up in, I mean, even right now, it feels like when we need CCTV for something, it's not there. So even that wasn't, that wasn't developed either. So you combine these two things, and of course, it just makes sense that people would, pardon me, want to do these type of things. Like I said, I'm not condoning that, but I'm not weird up there, but it's, I can just understand it, right? I can understand how when you get to that point in life where you have that much money and you have that much prestige, you want to just do anything and everything you want, because your life really, you've peaked, right? You've reached, you can get everything that you want. So now you're really going to pursue these things that might, otherwise be considered, taboo. And I think a good way that I've kind of wrapped my head around understanding, why all of this happened is that although I'll probably never know this feeling in my entire life, I guarantee if you or, more people were given the resources and the prestige and this power that that these individuals have. I'm not saying that you would do what they did, but there would definitely be some things that change about you. There would definitely be things that you just do differently, right? And we actually hear about this quite a bit, with normal people when they win the lottery. They go off and they get prostitutes and they do all these drugs and they, get these houses and they lose their mind, basically, right? And this happens with celebrities too, right? Where they come into fame and then they have like mental breakdowns because I don't know, they feel like they've lost purpose in life, or they have everything. So now they're, whatever their rationale is, these are common things that I think that happens, quite a bit, throughout the greater society. And like I said, even for myself, if I were to, I've never played the lottery, but let's say there was just money on my doorstep, huge, like the money that these people have, right? And it's not just $1 million, right? These people were buying islands, right? Epstein bought an island, right? That's pretty outrageous, right? So it's not just $1 million, it's not $10 million, it's hundreds of millions of dollars, that these people have to play with. If I was ever given that, I can candidly say I wouldn't be the same person. I would do my best to be, right? But there would be changes, right? And like I said, it makes sense, right? And that's what the whole point of this video is, to not condone any of the behavior, but the thing that we need to do is kind of understand that it is not normal, but it is understandable why these people would want to kind of do these suspect things, considering where they were at in their life. But there you go. Those are a few of my thoughts as to why this whole situation with Epstein and, everything that happened back then. And of course, right now, everybody's trying to run away from it because we have stricter laws. We've got, it's a different life right now, right? So it makes sense that how everybody would want to separate themselves as much as possible from even knowing the person. But that's a whole, that's an entire documentary, right? And I'm sure eventually this will be a documentary at some point once the leaves settle and stuff like that. But those are just a few of my thoughts as to why I don't agree with, but I understand how people in their position would want to pursue these endeavors, as suspect as they might be. And of course, as always, if you've stuck along this far in the video, I want to thank you so much for your time, and I hope to see you again sometime soon.